Hi, Amanda Decker here, nurse practitioner at DMA Weight and Wellness. I am going to talk to you today about something I call a meat cleanse. I've mentioned it several times on social media. Several times we've mentioned it on our recordings here. I talked about it with Nisha Berry recently. I think it was Mother's Day that we talked about it. And so I've had a lot of questions. Thought I would just go through what do I mean when I'm talking about a meat cleanse. So first question is why? Why would you do a meat cleanse? And the general idea is to take your body back down to the basics of what it needs, to give it the bare minimum of what it needs. But actually, I think it's way more than the bare minimum. But the idea is cut everything out except for what your body needs to survive and thrive. You would do this if you feel like you have some food sensitivities or food allergies and you're trying to identify what those are. If you feel like you carry a lot of inflammation, so arthritis, pain, inflammation in the gut, swelling. I do this personally when I have a psoriasis flare, which is an inflammatory and autoimmune condition, and when I'm trying to kind of knock that back down without using a lot of topical steroids and other medicines. You can do this if you've hit a weight stall. So if you're working on weight loss and you just completely stall out. If you have any other unexplained symptoms, just random things and you don't know why it is, something like this could be helpful. And then, like I mentioned with psoriasis, any autoimmune condition, I highly recommend doing a trial of the meat cleanse. Why leave meat? So why do I think just going down to meat is the good idea? And that's because it has the basic building blocks of what every cell in our body needs. It has the basic nutrition building blocks there. Meat carries essential things, essential amino acids. Other foods on this planet, plant-based foods, do not carry all the essential amino acids in one bite that meat does. And it's essential, meaning if you don't get it, your body's going to get it from somewhere. So guess where it's going to break it down from? Yeah, it's going to pull it from your muscle and break down your muscle. That's why we focus on protein on our weight loss type program that we do here, because we really want you to pull from your fat, not from your muscle tissue. So those are the reasons why we leave meat. Is there anybody that shouldn't do that? Shouldn't do this? And I should stop here and say this is not medical advice. This is general information. And if you want to know if this is right for you, you need to consult with your provider or with me directly in a one-on-one type situation. But who should not do this cleanse? If you have an allergy to meat, so if you have like alpha-gal, which is a condition from a tick bite to where you develop an allergy to red meats, things like beef and pork. So those people should not do a meat cleanse. It's going to be just a little difficult for them. If you are on dialysis, I don't know that this is the great thing. So the kidneys can handle high levels of protein up until the point of dialysis. And actually, when in the early stages of kidney failure, you can actually see going to a high protein meat, very clean diet can be very helpful. And I've seen it reverse kidney functions. But if you are on the point of dialysis, this is not for you. I'm sorry, we're past that point. If you're on medications that could be affected, like diabetes medications, especially things like insulin or glipizide, things like that, things that lower the blood sugar rapidly, you should consult with the provider while you're doing this and have good constant feedback so that you know you're being safe during this time. Also, blood pressure, you would have to watch if you're on blood pressure medicines, because a lot of times when people do a meat cleanse, they see their blood pressure just kind of go down and they need to hold or stop that blood pressure medication. So I want to stop here because last week I had a guest on, and she and I agreed about a lot of things. We definitely agree that you need a whole foods diet. We agree on you need to work on stress and sleep, that you need to work on your mindset. We need to get out inflammatory oils like vegetable and canola oil and corn oil, soybean oils, those type things need to get out of a diet. But she was more plant-based and I'm more meat-based. And there were a few comments that she made that I don't quite agree with. And one is that plants have all of your vitamins in them that you need, and it's very important to get them in, and it's important to eat the rainbow of those, and that the sun creates the colors and creates the vitamins that are in there. I disagree with that, because plants also carry with them toxins and things that can block us from absorbing all of the nutrients that we need. They also do not have the full spectrum of things that we need. That's why if you're doing vegan or vegetarian, then you have to supplement with some nutrients, especially the B vitamins. So while plants and whole food plant-based diets can be very helpful. And if that's the path that you choose, then we would still support you as long as you're doing whole foods and your body is doing well and you're supplementing. But your meat products, specifically your red meat, is your most nutrient dense food on this planet. It is the best absorbed food on this planet as far as the absorption of the nutrients. And if you would want to look at the nutrient density and the panel compared to, say, something like kale or other things, Maria Emmerich's books are great books to look at. All of her cookbooks have some of this in it. The ketogenic cleanse, I think, is one. The carnivore cookbook has got the nutrient panel in that. And so check out her website at mariamindbodyhealth.com. You can also check out her cookbooks and look at the nutrient density. And they'll list the science there, the studies that backs it up, that that is the most nutrient dense food on this planet. So let's get back on track. Helpful hints before you start a meat cleanse. If you're thinking this is something you're going to do, I recommend you take it a week at a time. You commit to 1 week. If you're committing to the rest of your life doing something, that's going to be a little daunting. And I even think committing to 30 days the first time that I did this would have been a little daunting. So commit to 1 week, 7 days. We're going to start. Now, when I start this, I start with beef, bacon, butter, and eggs, or as the berries like to call it, triple B&E. Beef, bacon, butter, and eggs. One, it's extremely simple. You can go to Burger King and get hamburger patties. You can go to Crystal and get eggs and bacon. It's just easy. There's no thinking, there's no planning. You can do ground beef, you can do like beef broth, and then steaks of all different kinds. So keep it simple. Beef, bacon, butter, and eggs. And like I said, unless you're alpha gal, then just don't even attempt this. This is not going to be a good thing for you. After you've done a week, or maybe 2 weeks, but after for sure that first week, ask yourself how you're feeling. Pay attention to your body. If you're feeling inflammation, leave. You're feeling like your weight is becoming more under control, your appetite's becoming under control, your sleep is doing better, any of those things, you decide if you want to keep going for another week on beef, bacon, butter, and eggs, or if you want to include other things. Generally, when I personally am doing a meat cleanse, I will do beef, bacon, butter, and eggs for anywhere between 7 and 30 days. At that point, I'm ready for a little something different. And what I recommend that you do next is you just start adding one additional meat source at a time. I personally, at that time, bring in seafood. Salmon is one of my favorite ones, and bass, things like that. So I'll bring in seafood next because I'm ready for something a little bit lighter. And if I bring, or when I bring back in chicken, I try to do more organic and make sure that they haven't been fed a lot of things that I wouldn't necessarily feed myself. You know, if they're free range type chickens, then I'm going to bring those back in. But you just pick a meat, you bring one back slowly at a time. And I recommend doing that at a level of about every 4 to 7 days. You bring back in a new type meat. After that, so I might stay on all the types of meats for 30 to 60 days total. So I'm 30 to 60 days in my meat cleanse. I may have also brought in, depending on the time that I've done it, sometimes I leave cheese until the very last, like after I bring back low carb veggies. Other times I'll bring back hard cheeses, like that you would slice type cheeses at that point. But at about day 60, 30 to 60, whenever you decide, start bringing back your low carb veggies, if that's what you want to do. I have known many people who will start a meat cleanse and turn into having a carnivore diet as the basis of their diet. And that's okay. It's completely healthy. And I have plenty of patients that do that, and they're thriving and their blood work looks good and there's absolutely no problems with it. So if you decide, I just feel better eating this way, then stick with it. If you decide, yeah, I feel better, but I'm missing those veggies, I want to bring those in, then start bringing things in one at a time. Where I personally start is with either olives or avocado, because they have good healthy fats, they're a little bit lighter, and usually they're very low inflammatory as well. So I'll start with olive or avocado. The next place I look is things like lettuce, cucumber, and celery. And once again, you want to bring all of these back individually. You don't want to just rush and bring all 3 of them back at the same time. Think about how you introduce foods to a baby. You give them one new food, you give it to them every day for 4 days, and you make sure that they do okay. And as long as they do okay, then you add the next. Same type premise here. You start with the avocado. 4, 5, 7 days later, you're doing good. You bring back in the olives. 4, 5, 7 days later, you're doing good. Maybe add the cucumber. You know, start with the ones you like. But those are the ones I find that are the least inflammatory. And then I tend to go to things like squash and zucchini and bring that in next. But you start and just bring back. And stick to the lower carb, less inflammatory veggies. We already talked about dairy. Take it or leave it. Some people leave it, some people take it. It is inflammatory to a lot of people. So I recommend at least in that first week, take it out, maybe even the first full month, and bring it back in. Make sure you're bringing it in by itself so that you can assess how you feel with it. Coffee, tea, unsweetened coffee and tea. I personally leave those in my diet when I'm doing a meat cleanse. Other people don't. That's one of those things you have to play around with on your own to see if it affects you. Things like fruits and nuts, I leave those for absolutely last because I find nuts to be inflammatory. Fruits are high in sugar, and I really found out that I don't tolerate a lot of nuts when it's a consumption thing. There's a certain level I can have a little bit, but after I've had them 3 days in a row, it's not necessarily a great thing for me. Move slow when you're approaching nightshade vegetables and things that are high in oxalates, things high in lectins. So the nightshade vegetables and things like that you might be eating on a low carb diet are going to be things like peppers, tomatoes, eggplant, spinach is going to have a lot of oxalates and things like that in it. So you can look up lists online of nightshades, high oxalate foods, and high lectin foods. And those you want to be very cautious with. Maybe start with small amounts and really pay attention to how your body feels with each one. The general idea is every time you bring something back in, whether it is a new meat or whether it is a vegetable that you're bringing in, you really have to pay attention to your hunger. Is it spiking hunger for you? And if so, that's probably not one that needs to come back into your diet. Does your inflammation change? Do you feel swollen? Do you get bloated all of a sudden? Do your joints ache? For me, I'm paying attention to my skin and how it's looking and how it's feeling. I also pay attention to my sleep because sometimes I start adding certain foods back in and I notice, hey, I'm just not getting as good of deep quality of sleep. I pay attention to my gut, bowel habits, urinary habits, things like that. Make sure that it's operating as clean as it possibly can. And some things have not made their way back into my diet, like broccoli used to be heavy in my low carb diet. And the first meat cleanse I did, it was a big hard no for me to bring it back. I brought it back and I immediately felt inflammation increase in my body. My gut swelled, my skin didn't feel good, I was itching. So even though it's something I've eaten my whole life and it's a very healthy food and I encourage you to eat it if you can and it's healthy for you, for me it's not. So this is a great thing to do if you want to really individualize your diet, find what's best for you. One more tidbit, do not do this around a holiday. Do not do it around an important event unless you want to struggle through it or you're just really convinced that, hey, that's the best way for you to stay on track during that holiday is to do this meat cleanse. And you can just tell everybody you're on an elimination diet trying to figure out some food sensitivities. It may actually help. And then you can lose weight over Christmas and Thanksgiving, things like that. All right. I hope this has kind of cleared up what a meat cleanse is, why we would do a meat cleanse, what it kind of looks like, the time frame. And if you have questions, feel free to post them. I will do my best to answer them. Thanks and have a